I may not speak for many of you, but I was once comforted by these contradictions within the modern left. How could privileged whites march around with a straight face decrying white privilege? How could progressives pretend to love conservative Muslims despite those Muslims' views on gender and sexuality? But the answer is obvious if you think about it, and it's a very, very dangerous and very sad answer. The radicals of the far left, they don't need a unifying ideology of what they're for because they know very well what they're against. What unites Islamists, gender studies majors, socially liberal white urbanites, and big pharma lobbyists, it isn't the ideas of Thomas Jefferson or even of Karl Marx. It's hatred. They hate the people in this room. They hate the President of the United States. And most of all, they hate the people who voted for that President of the United States. This is the animating principle of the American far left. Most of the people who vote for Democrats, they're good people struggling to get by, even if we think that they're misguided in their political judgment. But pay close attention to what the leadership of this movement says outside of the glossy campaign ads and outside of the general election tested messaging themes, and it's obvious what animates the leadership of the modern Democratic Party. They do not care that Islamism hates gays and subjugates women because for now, it's a useful tool of death against Americans. And they certainly don't care that deporting low-wage immigrants will raise the wages of the native-born because they don't mean to create higher living standards for those who are born and raised here, whether they're black, white, or any other skin color. They mean to replace those people with people who will listen to their increasingly bizarre ethnic and religious appeals. They are arsonists, and they will make common cause with anyone willing to light the match. And that's why Mamdani himself is such an appealing instrument to the left. He captures so many of the movement's apparent contradictions in a single human being.
He said it perfectly. Zohran Mamdani is the left. Not just because he's a radical and he wants Soviet-style grocery stores, not because he wants to eliminate private ownership and all other kinds of wacky, kooky, crazy communist ideas. No, it's also because he embodies all the constant contradiction. You've got a guy born into extreme privilege, raised with more luxury than most of us will ever see in our lifetime, and yet here he is pretending as if he understands the downtrodden, understands their issues, and has all the answers. Here we have a young socialist guy who claims he hates capitalism, oh, capitalism bad, but he could have lived everywhere, yet he chooses to live in a capitalist country. He chooses to live a life that's benefited from all the luxuries of capitalism. And now his entire career is built off donations that were earned through a capitalist system that enables democracy. I mean, capitalism is everything to this guy, but here he is telling us it's time to be more like Cuba. It's constant contradictions. You know, like the whole chickens for KFC phenomenon. That's another contradiction here. Zohran Mamdani tells us that he's on the side of the radical Islamists. I mean, he's arm in arm with the radical jihadists. But then in the same breath, and plastered all over his campaigning, he tells us that he's fighting for queer liberation. How can a queer liberation flag and a Hamas flag ever come together? You know, the left's coalition just makes no frickin' sense. I think that's the final conclusion. But of course, it doesn't matter because you think these people care about consistency? I mean, please, they'll say love is love and trans rights are human rights, but then they'll turn around and support extremist regimes that literally execute gay people. They'll scream feminism, feminism this, so we're going to the slut march. But then they'll also march in support of Hamas. They're walking, talking contradictions. And the only reason any of this even works, the reason all these groups can get along under one banner, despite them being so seemingly diametrically opposed, I mean, they certainly don't share values, but what they do share, what makes it work, is the common enemy, of course. A shared enemy. It's a hate cult, a burning pile of resentment dressed up as activism, you know, fluffy progressive activism. You know, seeing something like this just, oh, does it drive them nuts.